Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here of talking about whenever it comes to marketing, though, and a lot of times it sure seems that way. That when we do speak about marketing, a lot of times that you're thinking is toward okay, yeah, what exactly? How do we describe that? Whenever it comes to understanding about that, selling things, and what does that usually mean? Whenever you do sell things, and I'll go ahead and show everybody here of talking about with marketing right here that they have right here of talking about whenever it comes to marketing, and a lot of times it's like that everybody else might even want to know too that okay, that show me what you're talking about, or maybe just show the like so if you were to give somebody a catalog or show them a catalog of something that you're something and a lot of times it seems like that the first question that you're going to say, first thing that you're going to probably say is that special attention a lot of times. So if you were to look at the marketing, maybe just a little bit, like a pretty please or something like that. So at the time, it sure seems that way. That how many of us would maybe even say that talk about for the basic psychology though that whenever it comes to understanding about somebody's wants and needs and all that. How often are we really pretty pleased? And so it sure seems that way that do we want to think of the word pretty please as like any sort of marketing tip or anything like that? And so it's like every time we do think about that and want to know that okay, yeah, you're pretty pleased. So if somebody so if you were to actually be showing somebody a catalog of something that's of stuff that you're selling, right? And let's just say if it is maybe lotion or maybe beauty products or anything like that, or if it's insurance or anything like that, and you're one to know too that a lot of times it's like whenever you do sell stuff, and so at the time it's like most of the time that you're going to go ahead and show somebody maybe some examples of the stuff that something. If you look through the catalog and you might see some things in that catalog that you've been looking for, or maybe it really comes interest to your mind and all that. So I have right here of this right here will be these texts right here. I talk about for selling media and marketing provides the resources, but most resources though. So I have this writing, this text and writing right here, but at the time it sure seems that way that the first thing that really comes to your mind whenever you see something that you're real interested in, then for sure that do you sell any prints, or that can I have a copy of that? And so it's like so a lot of times it's you might you might hear that a lot of times is that you show somebody something, and I want to know is like well, do you have any copies, and do you have any extras? And so a lot of times it's like marketing, no, and like at the time you're always want to know too that does marketing really start that way just by the basic needs, or if anything it's about is just toward it you're trying to get somebody interested, or if anything special attention. And I can tell you one thing, everybody, it sure seems that way that a lot of it has to do with the special attention, just because of the fact that the opportunity and the pretty please next Friday, but really that I'm just showing everybody here this document right here just because of the fact that this right here was supposed to be a newspaper article right here, and I just want to know too that what are the best marketing tips that you can maybe think about. And most of the time it's like well, most of the time that you're telling somebody how something works, and a lot of times a lot of customers and clients they don't they don't know all the details about okay, how does this work, or did you know were you aware of how this works, or about this or that. And so a lot of times it's like so it's like so every time you do think about that talk about for selling stuff, and so it's like that So when we do think about that, about talking about selling things, and so like in your own words, if you want to go ahead, and I'm like, yeah, that talking about selling things, and most of the time it sure seems that way. That yeah, that the quantity also, but still. So if you're going to be filling out any order forms a lot of times, and you're thinking as toward, okay, yeah, that if you're going to be working on something for sure, if you're going to be working on something and you see something that you like, in this catalog, and a lot of times it's like, yeah, that's usually the case, right? Besides attention, if you see something that really that you really want to read about, or maybe anything, but really, I can maybe pull up maybe a few examples too, but still, it's talking about with whenever it comes to document, talk about for the ticket, tickets, your ticket moving forward right here, and talk about for the opportunity right here, and it's like next Friday. So yeah, so I include this right here, all this information right here, mainly because of the fact that that if I was going to be working on something like this, maybe for like a project or something like that, and let's just say if it's a one document right here, and let's just say that yeah, that the way you went ahead and place this right here, but still that whenever it comes to selling things, and whenever it comes to providing information, right? And so it sure seems that way, that that when we do talk about selling things, well, what's a good way of how you want to describe marketing? It's all about is toward it. Yeah, it's all about knowledge, right? It's about information, knowledge, and I can maybe write that. I mean, I can probably put that right here, that I can go, yeah, information, knowledge, and yeah, information, knowledge. And most of the time, like I really don't know if there's maybe an abbreviation. There might be an abbreviation for it, but or whichever. But still, that I know with me though that every time I do think about it and want to know too that really that that most of the time with a lot of tips and suggestions, of course, like anybody say that, yeah, if you want to make a suggestion about something, wouldn't that really be called information, knowledge? Is to word, okay, yeah, well, what we are really are selling here is not information based on what the educational board suggests. So let's just say that if a lot of this information on this paper right here came by suggestion, so like let's just say that information, knowledge right here, so that's another reason maybe why I'm like, yeah, I would the way I had that printed right there, but still that so it's like, yeah, you would include the big bulky text right here on the front of the images right there, and like I said before that yeah, that everybody is maybe going to be wondering toward, okay, yeah, number one, if you're trying to write an article here, if you're trying to write a copy story right here, if you're trying to tell a story to your readers, there is no reason for you to have all these your text and writing right here, and in big letters and all that. There's no reason to have that, but like it sure seems that way toward it. Yeah, that if you were to actually be having a meeting about this right here and thinking as toward, okay, yeah, that the text and writing, and so it's like, yeah, ticket moving forward right here. So it's like so really that it's like the based on the work that you do though, and half the time it's like, yeah, information, knowledge, and it's like, yeah, so if you would actually even put that even on your resume, and you're willing to where, okay, yeah, well, really that whenever you do sell stuff, and let's just say that your way of how you put that media together though, that would that also mean is to where that yeah, you might even say that this stuff right here is not up for sale, it's up for display. And so like let's just say if you were to tell everybody the story right here is to where that this media right here, yeah, it's up for display. It's for display, it's not for sale. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that every time you're going to be working a project though, that the first thing that you do say is that, yeah, that all this yeah, I'll go and put it right down here, but I know it's kind of blocking the view right there. But yeah, so if you were to say display, so while you're working on this, and maybe while you're taking down, while you're you're writing down notes, for anything that you're working on, that you might see that to where that a lot of information on this document right here, and let's just say if it's a PDF file document right here, and you first start working on the project, and you say is to where for display only, and that it's for that purpose. Nothing's for sale yet, but right now we're just gathering up information here. So that, but still, in case if anybody might say is that with this digital technology nowadays, it sure seems that way. That if you want to go ahead and build like a clipboard or something like that, and just put all kinds of information. I'm like, thumbnail images or maybe a news media, any other source of media on this document, which that's fine. But it's like, so it's like, so every time you do think about that, and you're 102, that, really, that there will be this option right here, especially for those, those users who know Acrobat very well. That if you're familiar with Acrobat, you set those settings to where it would say display for display only. So you're not really selling anything, nothing's really up for sale, but like it sure seems that way that you start working on something, and let's just say that during the time it was not up for sale, it was not up for market yet, before it was authorized, authorized or approved, and so a lot of times it's like a lot of designers might even say that whenever I was working on this, by the way, that the first thing that I was working on was that this information right here, it's not for sale, and so anybody who's going to be looking at your stuff, really, they're going to maybe say that really that you want to go ahead and show somebody first how something works, right, before you actually put it up for market. And so a lot of times it sure seems that way that you have a meeting with somebody and you show them how stuff works and do like a little demonstration. You do a field trip and just visit how somebody's if they're building back, they bring their jobs back, and so that's why it sure seems that way. That every time we do think about that, and you're warned toward that whenever you first start working this job, the first thing that you were trying to develop was it was a data analysis and making sure that everything was working right. So that's why it sure seems that way. That every time we do think about that, and you're warned toward whenever it comes to marketing and selling stuff, is that toward the first impression that you might get from a client or somebody that you were talking to was like, no, I'm not interested in anything in that catalog. But it's like by the time they actually see something that they want from that catalog, right? And so that maybe that's another reason why that like sites like Amazon and even Best Buy or other websites would say that that's why it's important to go ahead and advertise your products. And maybe that's another reason why, like everybody else may say, if you're trying to buy a newspaper, if you're wanting to buy a newspaper, that you would go ahead and I really don't know, but like everybody else might say, that if you're going to have a meeting about that, and you're going to include a page just like this right here, and have in bold letters right here, just saying this to where that there's been a new rule that was passed, or there's been something that was passed to allow it to where you can actually you put this information up here, up for market. And I know a lot of bookstores might find that real convenient, and maybe other bookstores and maybe other retail stores, and they might say that that this information right here is now being provided. It's now, I'm like, it's now up for market. But then there will be like there will be this page included right here to where before it was not available, it was not up for sale, but then now now it's been authorized, and so that's why it sure seems that way. That every time we do speak about marketing know, and you're one know too that the first impression that you do get from anybody would be is toward it. No, I'm not interested. Nope, I don't want anything out of there. And but still, it's like until you show them a catalog for sure, until you actually show them a catalog over anything in particular. But like anybody might even say, is toward it. An opportunity though is to where you show somebody how something works, and I would say that there's at least a 50% chance that they're going to say is to where, hey, I had no idea, how that worked. If you can show me how that works, and so there's to me though, I think about that is real convenient too. By the way, that if you show somebody how something works, for sure, then they would go ahead and want to buy it. And but still, but I know with me though that what I'm showing everybody here is actually more of an example of a PDF file document. So like, let's just say if you're trying to get produce a copy, if you're trying to produce a PDF file copy of a document, for sure, that you would do it this way. That there'll be a way to right click on the mouse, and you have the other commands too on it. But still, but talk about for keep in mind. But still, it's like I just want to mention that right here. Talk about for information and knowledge, and so every time I do think about that, and it sure seems that way that you really have to tell anybody a story about whenever you first started working on something that you may have thought that you out of that whole out of the whole maybe 8 weeks that while you were working, out of the whole 8 weeks that you were working, that you maybe thought that 300 copies of that seems to be so impossible. If you want to set a goal, and a lot of times it seems like that, you can go and write that down. Yeah, you can go and write that down, and if anything, place it right up here on the top. And I know everybody else might say that, all this information right here, but still, that, So if you were to set a goal, and maybe if you were to write that down, 300 copies. Yeah, 300 copies, and so it's like, so every time you do think about that, and you're warned to where, okay, 300 copies. 300 copies seems to be so impossible just because of the fact that you remember that, it was really hard for you to even sell one. And so, like, let's just say if that's supposed to be a goal, and like, let's just say, like everybody else might say, that, 300 copies. 300 copies seems to be really difficult. That seems, I'm like, I can maybe put that, maybe, right, I'm like, right down here, but, still, that, 300 copies. I know brain studies too, brain studies, but like everybody else might say that, whenever you first started working on that study, on that research, by the way, whenever you first started working on that research, that the first thing that you were thinking about was that, really that, how is that even possible to even sell 5 copies of this or even 10 copies of this, whenever that, possibly, like anybody say to you, especially if you don't even have a team yet, with team of supporters and all, but still, that, but at the time, it's like, that whenever you first start working on any project, really, that the first thing that you're going to be thinking about is that, it was set for display only before a number of companies that liked what you were working with. And so it sure seems that way that every time we do think about that and 102, that, really, can you really explain to everybody here what all this is all about right here? But still, that, but like I said before, that, you can actually duplicate one document and actually say, I'm like, PDF file document, one document containing so much information, one document that's proven that it was read by a client, and so that is why it sure seems that way that, we speak about clients, right? So like, it sure seems that way that I know everybody else might want to know too, that if you can maybe explain that, talk about for a client, you got a client that you're working with, and want to know too that you remember having a meeting about that, but then you're 102, okay, that you were talking about it, but then really, how important really is it, just to be able to explain to your client about how a lot of that works, such as if you're trying to make copies of something, or maybe if you're trying to provide information, if you're trying to fill out an application, even, how does that work? And that is why it sure seems that way. That a lot of your knowledge, by the way, a lot of your knowledge came by is to where that you were actually staring at something for 30 minutes before you can quite understand exactly how it worked, or whichever. But half the time, I'll even tell everybody too that you really you would maybe want to set rules and restrictions on your stuff whenever it comes to whenever you're just testing the equipment, and whenever you're just testing this, and want to know too that that's not for sale. That's not up for sale right there. But still, in case if anybody were to be ordering a book online, for sure, about psychology and social working, or maybe if it's a science, or maybe if it is about the study about stories or something like that, if you want to order a book online, for sure, that you would go ahead and say is to where that if you want to go ahead and order a book, but then you probably thinking is toward if you were working on something right here, and let's just say if a lot of this information was just information about for what you put together. So I know with me, I find that to be real convenient, by the way, everybody, is to where you go ahead and just take down notes, and just get some information together, and despite about how really, you want to make sure that everything is all correct, right? But still, whenever you're going to be looking at a newspaper article right here, and let's just say that based on the information that's printed right here, and you're always thinking as toward, was this right here in your own words, or were you actually working with a team of supporters or something like that? So every time you do think about that, and like, let's just say that somebody were to say that, but my question is actually related to providing a copy of a PDF file, but then also if I want to go ahead and get some prints made, if I want to get some copies made by print format, and so how would I do that? And so you would give them those options, right? And so that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever you were working on something, that first of all, it's like I said before, that you don't know how long it's going to take, but let's just say that if you tell somebody that it should take 3 days, if anything, 3 days, maybe 5 days, but still, but a lot of times it's like every time you do think about that, and you're 102 that just to be able to test our knowledge, right? But it's like from what was mentioned here, that you're one to where that really that whenever it comes to reading the news media and everything, you're one to where how long is this going to take? And but still, but every time I do think about that, and 102 that whenever I was working on this right here, and then now it's like you may have a client that's going to maybe ask you that well, how much do you want for that, right? I'm like, how much do you want for the prints? And it's like, well, they're for display only. You got that right there, for display only. So it's like so half the time it sure seems that way, that if you were to actually put that on a resume, how many, like everybody else might even say that if you put only, on your resume, which I don't think that's really a good idea to put only on a resume, but still. But at the same time, it's like, if you want to say it's for display only, that you say, it's really for display. This information right here is really for display before it goes up for market. But it sure seems that way, that whenever it comes to introducing to how something works, that there's a better chances that clients are going to want to use it, and then customers are going to want to buy it. whenever you do show somebody how something works, for sure that they're going to want to buy it, and that is why it sure seems that way. That every time we do think about that and want to know too, is toward it. Okay, yeah, that you think it's really impossible just to be able to sell 300 copies. Like, yeah, whenever you first start working, and but still, everybody else might say that really, if you're going to be working on something, for sure, if you're going to be working on something that really interests that company, for sure, that they're going to say that hey, we want you on the team, and so that's why it sure seemed like, yeah, and I'll even tell everybody here too that interesting, and I'll go and write that right here, that interesting, and so even if even if not everything was originally planned, and like everybody else might say that while you were working on something, while you were working a job, that the first thing that you're going to say is toward it, yeah, well, yeah, interesting, and while you were working on something, though, while you were working on something, and tell everybody too, yeah, I can maybe copy that. Interesting, because I think everybody else would probably say that they find the studies of the brain to be quite interesting too. But still, it's like every time I do think about that and want to know too that, yeah, while you were working on something, for sure, that it's all about getting somebody interested in what you were working with, what you were studying, and about how well that the science reads your minds, and that how something's automatically updated, and but really that you don't really need to be working. I'm like, yeah, for a document, you don't really need to have all these texts and everything all printed right here, for any reason at all. I'm just showing everybody here that if you were to actually have a duplicate copy of a document with everything that you talked about, but like anybody say that's really, that's kind of hiding. I'm like, yeah, it's like a backdrop to where it's hiding the those images in the background like that, and it makes it harder for you to be able to see those images and just to be able to see those text and writing. But like it sure seems that way, that you really just have to go by as toward it whenever a document has been created, right? And let's just say if it's read only, that there will be like these text, right here on the front saying is toward it that yeah, it's already been modified and it's already been reviewed, and all you have to do is just making sure that everything looks all correct on the information bar, and so like like, yeah, yeah, usually on the right corner or something like that, but still. Anyway, but I thought I was going to tell everybody that you talk about for providing resources, and it's like, so every time we do think about that, and I want to know too that, whenever it comes to marketing and selling stuff, that you're thinking is toward that, 300 copies. If you were to actually write that down, like, yeah, if you want to set, for a goal, and that seems to be so impossible, mainly because of the fact that whenever you first start working on something, and you were thinking as toward okay, yeah, that how many customers and clients are real interested in what you found out, and but I would really maybe suggest, if anything, is toward that you have a meeting, so that way you can show, yeah, have a meeting so that way you can talk about some of the stuff. Just talk to somebody and have a meeting to where you're able to talk to at least 4 or 5 other people, and just to show them what you put together, your progress, and just, if anything, write a document explaining about what you come up with, and but still. But half the time it seems like, yeah, it's all about a test, right? But every time you do think about that, and 102, that, yeah, information knowledge, all this information right here, it was all recorded based on the feedback, and so this right here, I'm like, yeah, so like, let's just say that time recorded, and the study about time, right? And time recorded, and I really don't know if that's really a resource based on the fact about psychology and social work or anything like that, but let's just say if I were to say that. And want to know too that the studies about the brain, but still that Mike want to know too that yeah, put that right there. But your time recorded, and what I mean by time recorded, I mean by that you really are not setting in. You're not really following the directions from what was required. So whenever you first start working on like a newspaper article like this, and let's just say that a few things that you put on here were just suggestions and based on feedback, right? You weren't really following any directions, but like let's just say that if somebody were to say that yeah, for chances are that maybe a document is not going to be accepted because it don't go by the requirements, the system by the system requirements. But at the same time, it sure seems that way that whenever it comes to putting together a document based on what is recommended and based on a suggestion, right? And you're thinking as to, okay, yeah, interesting. But still, based on my research, though, it's like, yeah, talk about for electronic signatures, though, but still, that, whenever you do sell stuff, that it sure seems that way, that, you are selling a story, right? And if you want to look at that to where, what exactly is it that you're selling? And let's just say that, a lot of professionals might even say that, what you really are doing is you're selling a story. People want to read about that. They want to go ahead and read about, about what you learned and anything that you want to share, with the public. And so it's like, yeah, so a lot of times everybody else might say that, if you want to go ahead and sell anything, then you can go ahead and share, sell a story. And I know a lot of stories, by the way. A lot of stories, by the way, and there's a lot of stories, by the way, but everybody else might say that, yeah, either stories or story. I can put that too. Either stories or story. And so it's like, yeah, you want to start out the topic by saying or. And, yeah, do we really have a choice in the matter over the fact that whenever it comes to marketing, and half the time you're always thinking that whenever it comes to marketing, right, that what exactly is it that you will be putting up for market? And so the first thing that really comes to your mind would be is to where that, yeah, selling stories and putting something up for market. And yeah, it's a bigger text, smaller text right there. Anyway, I'm just putting that right there. But if you see or right there, the stories or story right there. So if you were to actually write that on a document, like anybody say that, yeah, that based on your experience, though, that it's like the first thing that you're going to be thinking about is that, oh, you got more than one. You got more than one. You got a few dozen. And so it's like maybe that's another reason why that a lot of these professionals might say that it's good to follow these instructions just because that, based on the information that was already there, or if anything, maybe if the school or maybe if the business were to say that they passed a new rule saying is to where to please follow these instructions right here, and maybe that's another reason why, like everybody else might say that it's important to follow the instructions, but still, I usually like that where I can actually give a suggestion and maybe work with something that I would really highly suggest, but like everybody else might say is to where that whenever you're going to be working on something, you really, I'm like, yeah, if you're not going to want to follow the instructions for sure, but still, time to be recorded. And so a lot of times it's like, yeah, I use that, by the way, like part of research to where that that whenever something's being recorded, though, that I'm like, yeah, at the same time it's being reviewed. And that's why it sure seems that way, that every time you do think about that, and you're 102, yeah, progress has been made. And so if I were to, I'm like, yeah, a lot of things, a lot of text that I'm including on this document, right? But progress has been made. So every time you do think about that, and you're warned to word it, that yeah, every time you do think about that, and you're thinking is to word it, yeah, well, really, that whenever you first start working on something, it sure seems that way, that you had a long road, long road ahead to where all that work that you had to do and all that, but still, at the same time, it's like, you have a meeting about something. And that usually helps, by the way. If you have a meeting about something and you're able to talk and discuss things, for sure, it may seem like those meetings, by the way, may seem like to where that, okay, yeah, you go to a meeting and half the time, all you really are doing is that you're just really just listening to what people are talking about most of the time. But like, let's just say that that at the same time, though, that if you're going to be going to a meeting and want to know that is progress really being made whenever you're going to be working out, working out the details. And so, like anybody say that, yeah, whenever you do sell some, that it's like the first thing is first is that has progress been made or not? And so you look at this document right here, and you might think that everything is kind of all squashed together right there, and that's what it looks like, right? And everything is kind of all squashed together right there. But still, when we think about that, and I want to know too is that if that looks familiar right there, or if anything that anything that you talked about during the meeting, but really that just to be able to answer that question, that what's it like to actually sell stuff, and like resources, right? But still, that the first impression that you usually would get is toward it. Now, I don't want anything out of there. Well, really, I honestly don't even know how it works, or if anything, if anything, I'll order later on. So it sure seems that way. That even if it's tickets or if it's admission passes or something like that, that the first thing is first is to where that maybe if you were to show somebody how something works, it seems like that's a higher chances of a marketing, right? Whenever it comes to selling stuff, and a lot of times it sure seems that way. That whenever you first start working on something, that what you experience most of the time was about the fact about that you were actually studying about how everybody else finds your work to be very interesting. That's whenever they start buying it, right? But still. But at the same time, it's like every time you do think about that, and I want to know too that, this right here, that, I can't read this part right here. And so that's why it sure seems that way. Everybody might say that, if you're going to be working on any design that includes media, that at least have it on separate documents to where that where it's readable. But I had this right here just to show right here of talking about watching the President's State of the Union address, and then also to study about that how people think and how people feel, and that is why it sure seems that way. That every time I do think about that and 102, that okay, do you think that maybe everybody would like to see something that you're working on? You're not really following any directions or anything, but it's just barely about suggestions, right? So it's like so every time you do think about that, and at 102, whenever you first start working on a job, that the first thing that you were told is that do you think that you'll be able to have this done in 5 days or so? So a lot of times it's like, whenever you do first start working a job, by the way, that you don't really set any source of goal or achievement, but really the things that you would want to put on your resume indicating about how fast do you think that you'll be able to get this job done. And a lot of times it's like it works like magic, right? To where you go ahead and concentrate on something else, and let's just say that So every time you do think about that in 102, that what you do is that like a blank page, right? You go ahead and look at a blank page right here. You go ahead and turn away from it, and then and see what changes. So you look away from it, and you look back to it, and then you see changes. You see updates, right? And it seems like that's really the beauty of it, the magic of it. But still, But at the same time, it sure seems that way. That yeah, the magic about it would be is toward it. Yeah, well, really, all that work that you put into something and find out that if it's already been updated, it's already been taken care of, so all you gotta do is just making sure that everything is all correct. And so yeah, so it's like whenever it comes to taking care of something important, right? Whenever it comes to taking care of something important, it sure seems that way that you have to have extra copies of something just for verification purposes. But at the time, it's like you'll want to know too that really that the chances are somebody wanting for you to show them how something works is based on the research, right? And that is why it sure seems that way. That go easy on the person. How long is this going to take for you to do this? Ticket moving forward. And so a lot of times, every time we do think about that, and you're one of too, that one of the reasons how I got the job and why I got the job was because you were able to show somebody how something works. But like everybody else might say that if you can go ahead and right click on your mouse and you can just see these options right here. And you got the paste tool, and then you got the zoom option right here. The entire paste board right here. So so it's like every time you look at these documents, and want to know too that you put together a document right here, but then right now it's not available on any other source of file format. And so that is why it sure seems that way. That the first thing that you would really want to tell anybody, a client, is that is it gonna how long is this gonna take you really? And if you say, I'm like, up to 5 minutes to 5 hours, anything. And for sure that you would probably, if anything, you would probably tell them that we'll let you know in 5 hours. And so if you want to go ahead and so if you're going to be doing a job assessment, especially if you're going to be doing a job assessment, if anything, if you want to look at that like a goal, look at it like a goal to where that see how much work that you're able to get done in 5 hours. So like everybody else might say that, really, there's a lot of jobs out there, by the way, and half the time people may say that, well, you don't really call them jobs necessarily. You may call them tasks or whichever, but still, that, before you're officially hired for this job, that really, that, we want you to show us how this works right here. Please show us what you're talking about. And so that's why it sure seems that way. That every time I think about that and want to know too, the president gives a speech about something, but it sure seems that way that jobs and the ones that ask you to have the job done, please have this ready. If you can have it ready in 3 days or something like that. But see how much work in progress, in 5 hours. But every time I do think about that, and I'm always thinking is toward it, the opportunity right here. But at the time, I'm always thinking that, based on my experience, though, that, a lot of managers might say that, well, really, that, do you think that, do you think that you have it ready by today? Like, okay, well, then that's a problem if you can't have it done by today. But still, it's like if you're going to be working on anything in particular, especially if it's maybe making copies or providing data information, that there's a lot of jobs out there that would ask as to where that, how soon can you have this ready? And that's why it sure seems that way, that, you really have to have time set aside to where you go ahead and do the research. Like you go ahead and develop a plan to where I'm like, to where you have like an agenda. And maybe another reason maybe why a lot of professionals would think about that, to where that, information, knowledge, to where that you go ahead and test, and it just says, for display only. So that way you can show everybody how something works, right? But at the same time, it's like, do you really, that, is that really like your opportunity for the ticket moving forward right here? But still, but whenever it comes to selling stuff, though, that, you're providing resources, right? But still, that like everybody else might say, that did that really go far and beyond from what the original plans were? But at the same time, it's like, yeah, well, really, not everything is perfect, right? But still, it's like, based on my experience, though, that it's like, yeah, you may feel like you did some of this extra work for nothing. Like, well, you were working on something, but then somebody says that, well, you can go ahead and, well, don't worry about that. Well, we got another agenda for you, and so that is why it sure seems that way. That yeah, 300 copies, and but still, work in progress, right? So every time you have a meeting about something like that, and your 102 is to where it really, what is so magical about that? But still, in case of anybody that may want to word it, yeah, well, really, that you go ahead and work with a team of professionals, just to be able to get the work going, and but still, and you want to know too that yeah, that there are some tasks that do take that are more challenging than others. So that's why it seems like to word it, go easy on the person. You had a good opportunity next Friday, and then pretty please. So it sure seems that way, that I keep a lot of stuff in mind, right? But every time I do think about that, and I'm always thinking as toward, yeah, well, really, that if you put display only on the top of the document right here, for sure, what do you think people are going to think about that in 102? That hey, that why are you setting rules and restrictions on some of the stuff when it's needed? But that's why it sure seems that way. That every time you do think about that, the first thing that you're going to be thinking about is that, well, you didn't come up with it, I did. It's my research, and so that is why it sure seems that way. That every time you do look at work based on computer work right here, and the first thing that you're going to be thinking about is that yeah, about the property, and so that's I guess that's another tool to keep in mind too, whenever it comes to property. That that whenever you do if you do sell anything one of these days, for sure, that they're going to say that you're licensing and properties, but still that really that when you first start working on something, for sure, that yeah, I'm already running out of space just a little bit, to put all these texts, but still that whenever it comes to a lot of the documents, right? But still, that it's like, but if you're going to be looking at a document like this in 102, that yeah, that you remember having a meeting about that, some of that stuff, and at the time you're 102, that if you put together in a story, but so like anybody say that yeah, if anything, explain the story on a document that's readable instead of having everything all kind of worded like that. Just go ahead and on a separate document, just explain what you done, what you put together, and everybody would be able to understand that. But still, everybody else might say that yeah, on this clipboard right here, on the slide, that whichever that you want to prefer to, but still that but whenever you do look at a document like this, and you're thinking as to where whenever you throw stuff up there like go easy, marketing and selling, not everybody's going to know what all that means right there. Not everybody's going to know what that is, and that is why it sure seems that way. That yeah, the way it was all put together, and to me though, it's like, is that just a little bit like solving a puzzle? Like whenever you look at a puzzle piece, right, you had to include the instructions on there about, okay, these are the results, and this is what's been updated, and please include a document explaining about what was modified and what was updated, and then what was being monitored. So altogether, that sounds like it's 5 documents, right? So every time we do think about that, and 102, does that mean that you would have to form a duplicate and also include a cover letter explaining what you put together right here of the data? And that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever it comes to jobs though, right, that not everybody's able to look at everything that you were working with right here. So that's why it seems like that every time you do talk about a meeting though, and you're 102, that yeah, well, the last meeting that you had, there was only maybe 3 people that were connected, but then let's just say that maybe within the next 4 weeks from now, that there could maybe be 50 people who are trying to connect, so that way they can follow up about what was discussed. And so that is why it sure seems that way. That every time we do speak about research, though, in 102, that how many people are going to be interested in that stuff. And so that is why it sure seems that way. That just to be able to get the workflow going, that you want to think about that. That whenever it comes to research, and whenever it comes to the work that you do, that a lot of the work that you do, and maybe not all of it, is maybe going to be up for market, but if you have a lot of people, a lot of clients, customers, that they're saying that they would like to request to have a copy of something, and you want to know too that okay, yeah, well, if you sell anything, if there's any products that you do sell, but everybody else might say to you, yeah, well, what about the prices though? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, we don't make the prices, but let's just say, I'm like, yeah, everybody else might say that, yeah, you don't really, you don't really want to, if you were to make the prices on anything, but still, it sure seems that way, that, yeah, if you were to make the prices on anything that you're selling, I can maybe say that, yeah, $8.99. And most of the time, that's usually how much a lot of, 3-page books most of the time, maybe $5.99. Yeah, this right here is only 2 pages. If it's only, yeah, I'll just say, yeah. Yeah, $3.99 or $5.99. Oh, $3.99. I see what I can come up with here, but yeah, 2 pages, 2 or 3 pages, right here. Yeah, $3.99. So yeah, any digital products or anything like that, right here, that everybody else might say that would anybody really agree to pay $3.99 for a paper? If there was only 3 pages, so that's only about maybe $1.80 per paper, something like that. But really, that in case if anybody may say that, yeah, well, $3.99, you went ahead and picked up that document, so that way you can read a little bit more about that, and so that way you can go ahead and get an idea about what you put together right here. And but still, it's like tell everybody that, yeah, well, if you were to set the prices, do you think that you would cop it still? I'm like, really? The way I think about it, though, is that the company, like the property of the company and all, but but still, talk about for special attention right here. So one thing that I can maybe even, I'm like, yeah, about the president, would say that you talk about for special attention. Yeah, special attention, and then for special edition, and talk about for edition, right? And but it's like, yeah, so every time we do think about that in 102, that anything special about that. But 102, that, yeah, if you have a meeting about something, but then they say is to where, yeah, well, you don't have to worry about all the details right here. You just gotta make sure that everything right here on the bottom is correct and go ahead and sign it. And so it's like, yeah, every time you do speak about jobs, though, and it sure seems that way, that not everybody looks forward to having to go from step 1 to 10 to where they have to answer all the questions on their resume and all that. And that is why it sure seems that way, that just to kind of go easy to where you don't have to worry about that part. All you gotta do is just making sure the information is correct, but still, that some information is free, but I'll go ahead and mention to everybody here about free, because you don't get everything for free, by the way. Tell everybody too that you don't get everything for free. You don't get everything for free, so I guess another way of how you want to call it is to where that you might get free for today, but then it's $3.99 tomorrow or something like that. I noticed that a lot of marketing tips, by the way, marketing. I'll even tell the president that that a lot of why can't we say something like free speech or something like that? But still, every time we do speak about free, though, that why can't we just say something like, well, it works, guarantee the work or something like that? But still, in case of anybody that may want to know too, that anything that's really going to catch anybody's attention, really, best opportunities. I would probably say best opportunities for sure, but still, good opportunities, but at the same time that every time we do speak about any editing or designs or anything, and I want to know too that well really that if you were to sell anything, and you know how that is that what sorts of business do you usually have whenever you do sell stuff, and half the time it's like it's basically meaningless to where that that you're actually offering this person, you're offering this customer those resources, right? So it seems like it's all about the resources, and resources. I can put that down real quick right here and talk about for the resources, and resources, and you basically are selling the resources provided based on what's needed, and to me though it's like so like let's just say that if you were to be calling up in one of those offices, and they say is to where well really you just really you would like to have a copy of something, but then if you want to go ahead and buy any of the products there at the store or something like that, anything that you want from the inventory, so a lot of times it's like for sure, I'll even tell everybody here, be quite honest with you, based on my experience, it seems like it's all from the meeting. If you had a meeting with somebody talking about something for sure, or if anything that like a lot of those marketing companies, like you go by Agenda or a list or anything like that, but most of the time though that whenever you do whenever you do talk over the phone, or maybe even chat live with an agent, that for sure that they're going to see about what's needed, and anything interesting. But still, don't you think, what is the most important part about the marketing right here? Is it really about the special attention, or like good opportunities, right? And for what's needed, and the chances of you really selling a lot of things would be is this to me though, if you go ahead and get into that conversation about how this stuff works, about how what is soon to be expected and what's coming soon, that sorts of stuff. So I just really think that the conversations would go a lot more reasonable, a lot better if you did talk about coming soon, or maybe if it's about how things work, and but really, I mean, that's really my opinion about it, but still. But really, though, tell everybody that whenever it comes to understanding all this stuff right here, and want to know that, I'm like, well, really, if anybody wants a copy of that, I'm like, go ahead and get the readable edition, and get one where it's stamped on the front saying go easy, easy reading purposes or something like that. But this right here is InDesign, by the way. But still, if I were to say these documents right here, 5 pages, if I were to say 5 pages altogether using Acrobat, then you would be able to tell by how it was put together. And then, like everybody else might say, that whenever you work real hard on something, it seems like it's going to contain up to 5 or 10 pages of what had to be done. And that's why it sure seems that way. That based on your experience, though, that it's is it really about fair share, or if it's really about is to where it's all about being special, right? Pretty please. And but half the time it sure seems that way. That it's important to know, to tell people about how something works, because you can't let anybody off guard with that. And also, whenever it comes to trying to figure out something and trying to learn something new, because not everybody's really going to, not everybody's going to understand the computers, not everybody's going to understand these mobile apps, and so that's why I should keep in mind about something, but still. But when we talk about paperwork though, and like anybody say that, a lot of companies would say that, nearly 13%, nearly 40% of all their customers and clients still ask to get a paper copy of something, just for the reference. So I say is to where, they ask you a paper copy of something. So whenever you do put together something like this, and want to know too that, you got a copy of this, and then you receive a copy of a cover letter explaining about what all on the instructions about what was explained. So that is why it sure seems that way, that when we do speak about jobs, though, that the ticket moving forward is toward it, that you look at those good opportunities whenever it comes to working on something. But anyway, talk about for display or anything, but still, way I'll think about it. But anyway, hopefully that's a good information right there for everybody. But other than that, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.